welcome. Glad to see everybody here for our regular meeting for the month of December. As always, we start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. And today we have a group of students from Hewitt Elementary and Miss Watley.
Yes. Well, good evening, President Russick, our board members, and Midway community. Hewitt Elementary has 6 clubs on our campus, and for the first time, we are able to offer a sign language club. As a club, our students are introduced to sign language and the deaf community. They learn basic concepts of ASL, a few songs to sign, along with common seasonal terms. I'm pleased to introduce to you tonight our 5th graders that are part of the Sign Language Club and their sponsors who will lead us in the American Pledge. We have Liam Macon, Haley Fithian, Michael Salazar, Dominic Davis, and Jalea Williams. Also, we have Emily Lattimore as our sponsor, Susan Gideon, and Anna Sewell. And so if you'll bear with us, if you go ahead and stand up. And we're going to say it a little bit slower because they are going to sign it as we do it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
That was great. Thank y'all so much, students. And then, as we always do, recognition following this. Miss Watts is going to help us tonight, and we've got some outstanding recognition. Turn it over to the superintendent.
Okay. President Russick, members of the board, and parents and students, members of our community, thank you for being here tonight. It's always our pleasure to begin our meetings with student and staff and district recognitions, and we have several that we are very proud to recognize this evening. Before I stop, though, I do have someone's cell phone left up there. All right. That would be very, very important to do. So I'd like to start with introducing Ms. Pam Watts. Ms. Watts will be assisting us as the representative of the board, and we're going to start with our holiday card artists. Every year, the Midway ISD sends out holiday cards to other school districts in the area, as well as some of our community partners, and we're always so proud to showcase our student artwork. And our students submit, and we're able to choose ones from different schools each and every year. And so this year, the cover art is from Chapel Park Elementary School, and I'd like to introduce those particular students that are here tonight. So, Ms. Watts, if you'll start with that, I'd like to introduce Emily Lambeth. Is Emily here? What about Alana Mora? Is Alana here? Where's Alana? Come on forward, Alana. Come forward. See Miss Watts. Thank you. Right there. And Hannah Rodkey. Is Hannah here? There's Hannah. Come forward. So these are from Chapel Park Elementary School. Now, we had snowmen on our Christmas card, and they were designed by Park Hill Elementary students. So what about Juliet Dominguez? Is Juliet here? Mohit Irfan? Brady Keston? Alina? Oh, is Brady here? All right, Brady. Come on up, Brady. Alina Rivera-Ross? All right. Ainsley Sauer. Ainsley's coming up. Liliana Schwellenbach. Gabriela Torres. And Tessa Weaver. Tessa here tonight. Okay. All right, artwork for our annual holiday cards is designed as a volunteer commitment from our art teachers, our students. We appreciate our fine art staff so much, including art teachers Sue Ann Smith at Chapel Park and Lauren Lively at Park Hill. Are they here this evening? Come forward, please. Okay. And we certainly appreciate y'all's commitment to fostering student creativity. All right, so before you leave, I see 2 proud principals from our park schools, Chapel Park and Park Hill. Any parents want a quick photo? Parents, anybody? Didn't get one? All right, come on. Come on up, get a good photo. And students, show off that pretty holiday card and your artwork. Aren't they fabulous? Aren't they fantastic? All right, one more round of applause for our students and teachers. All right, thank you so much. All right, thank you so much. Next, I'd like to introduce to you Miss Allison Smith. She's our principal at Midway High School for a very, very special staff award that we are so proud to award tonight. So, Miss Smith, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Kazanis and board members. So tonight I get the honor of presenting Miss Susan Jones. I'm going to have her go ahead and come on up. So, Miss Jones, the National Speech and Debate Association recently announced Midway High School computer science and debate teacher Susan Jones as a winner of the Diamond Coach Award. The Diamond Award is the highest honor for coaches to achieve as a part of the National Speech and Debate Association and recognizes a professional career that combines excellence and longevity in speech and debate education. This prestigious award is presented to coaches who earn points through NSDA from team participation, student achievement, public service, and leadership work. Jones received 15,000 points to earn her first Diamond Award, and as a coach has been instrumental in the success of Midway High School speech and debate program, and she travels almost every weekend for our speech and debate kids. So congratulations, Ms. Jones.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to present a recognition and an award to the district, and this is for what's called the first rating. In November, the Texas Education Agency announced financial accountability ratings for school districts across the state based on financial data from the 2021-22 school year. For the seventh year in a row, Midway ISD earned an A rating, indicating superior achievement in financial management practices. And students, we scored 98 out of 100. Is that pretty good? Pretty good. So now we just have to work on those extra 2 points this next year, don't we? And so we're certainly grateful for this recognition and support of our community as we can strive to be good stewards of our tax dollars and of the dollars that we use to educate our students. And so I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Wesley Brooks, who's our Assistant Superintendent for Finance. So Mr. Brooks, any others in your staff here tonight? Cindy Pointer, she's saying no, but we have a couple of them that are here tonight. So let's please join me in congratulating Midway ISD's Finance Department. All right, so the board members, did I miss any on here? Okay. So in the consent agenda, board members do see that December 2022 grants for great ideas from the Education Foundation are on the consent agenda. But I'd like to welcome the Foundation's Executive Director, Susie Pagel, to present the grant award-winning teachers, which is her final time to do this as she is retiring. Yes, it deserves a lot of, this is her last meeting before next month. So before we do that, I want to take since I have the mic, I get a few words in to do that. We're very grateful to Susie for over 26 years in public education, and really cannot express to all of you the impact she has made here in our district. And in doing the math, this is 22 in Midway? 22 years. She is our one and only Education Foundation Executive Director. We've only had one in the history. And for 22 years, she has been leading this outstanding organization, which has now really become a star across Texas. She consults quite frequently other school districts to help them with startups of their foundations because of the model that has been set here at Midway ISD. Our foundation has continued to grow. We have continued to award, I think, was it over $2 million now? $2 million in grants to our teachers and staff members here in the district. And it's continuing to grow, record-breaking year again with donations, both from individuals, our staff, as well as our corporate partners. And she has certainly created this legacy here in the district. We are having, to honor Susie officially, January the 2nd at our mid-year celebration here in the district. And so and then later in the month, I know the foundation is honoring her with the reception. Couldn't think of another opportunity. Ms. Watts, if you'd help me there with our retirement gift. I mean, what do you give? It's tough, but to find something, we thought we'd get you cutting boards that we give all of our retirees. And special thanks. So please come forward before you do your awards to honor you on your retirement. And inside that envelope is a little card called a red card. Means she can come to all events for free. So we hope to see you back at events for free. And so as you can imagine, ladies and gentlemen and students, how hard it would be to fill her role as executive director. That's tough shoes to fill, as I said, after 22 years. And so, but in collaboration with the board of directors of the Education Foundation and committee members here in the district, we did our search. We used a search firm, Foundation Innovation, to assist with that, and been in that process all of this fall semester to name a new executive director. And we're very fortunate tonight that I can introduce this individual to you, and that is to my left, Miss Ashley Futris. Miss Futris, please come forward. Come up with her. Miss Futris is not far from home. She's a 2005 Midway High School alumni. She graduated from our high school. She has been working in the Central Texas area in related fields in foundations and fundraising, and we're just thrilled that she's coming back to Midway ISD and will be part of the next generation of the foundation and its growth. And so, welcome. We're also fortunate that Susie's not officially retiring until the end of January, so you have some time to pick her brain. To really pick her brain, and as certainly as with retirement, not going too far. Maybe give her the month of February off. That's the TRS rules. But then in March we can come back and pick her brain some more. So please join me in congratulating Ms. Pagel as well as welcoming Ms. Futris. All right, so now I can turn the microphone back over to you, Ms. Pagel, for grant awardees, because we have a bunch of those.
Usually I'm the one that gets to surprise people. I was not expecting that. A little off script. We are thrilled. We were able to go back into the classroom last week to make our Prize Posse Awards. When we come into the classroom with big checks and loud cowbells and balloons, it's amazing what principals will let you do when you bring money like that into the classroom.
And right before testing. Sometimes.
And sometimes during a test. That's my favorite.
It's like being grandpa and then leaving.
Yeah, it's just like that. It's just like that. So we are thrilled to announce that we gave away just over $34,000 last week, and we are here to congratulate the winners. But first I want to call up our president, Christy Miller, the Education Foundation president. This is her last month as an officer too, or at least as president. And also Jennifer Getterman, who is our grants chair. And you just have to keep that job forever. So if you'll stand over there and greet our winners. The first one is from Castleman Creek Elementary, Dania Boykins. If you'll come on up. Her grant is for coding collaboration. It's robots, Spheros and B-bots. All the things for $2,350, and that's named in honor of Winton Engineering. Next is a grant named in honor of Dr. and Mrs. George Kasanis for their ongoing support of the Education Foundation. Chapel Park Elementary, Katie Talbert won a grant of $5,890. And this one's very unique. It's called Feed Your Mind Book Vending Machine to promote literacy, a book vending machine. Also from Chapel Park is Back to Basics with BAS. It's a benchmark assessment system, and that was won by Missy King, Kristen Kegley, Jennifer Davis, Blythe Guerra, Nancy Markham, and one other person, the name got cut off. Who else is it? Thank you. Come on down. And that grant was for $4,455 and is named in honor of Extraco Banks. Next, from Park Hill Elementary, we have Block Party. Christy Bache, Tasha Hefferkamp, Jocelyn Iskey, Angela Parsons, Madison Peach, and Jalynn Reinwald. Come on down. This was the largest grant we awarded this time, and it's for $7,910 for an Imagination Playground Blocks set. We're going to come over and play. Next at Park Hill is Morgan Sauer, LMNOP, Loving Makerspace in Our Park. LMNOP. And that grant is for $1,415 for makerspace activities named in honor of Jim Turner Chevrolet. Next, from Spring Valley Elementary, Sydney Jones, the information station is for interactive easels and manipulatives. Sydney, are you here? Oops, did you have to miss tonight? That's named in honor of Lone Star Truck Group. Next, from Spring Valley Elementary is Di Copeman and Michelle Kupacheski. The grant is Manipulating Understanding a School-Wide Math Manipulatives Library for $3,400, and that's named in honor of BC Materials Ready Mix Concrete, Wade and Christy Miller. Courtyard Classroom is seating equipment for gross motor movement and raised garden beds at River Valley Middle School. Andra Spearbrecker, Jennifer Wilkerson, and Paul Catterley. Come on down. And this grant was named in honor of Chuck and Lisa Lewis. Next, rolling into purposeful bulletin boards for Midway High School, Vanessa Dulock. It's paper cutter rack with rolls. The Ready, Set, Teach classes are going to take over the bulletin boards at Midway High School. And finally, Light It Up, photo studio lighting, props, and accessories for Midway High School, Jamie Beavers. For studio lighting kits, props, and accessories for her classes. It's $1,480, and it's named in honor of Midway grad Amanda Cunningham, Realtor. Congratulations. Okay. Yep, gonna make 2 rows. Come on down.
It's always about Miss Edwards. Always about Miss Edwards.
Jailbreak.
Thank you, Miss Miller. Oh, I was going to make the announcement that we take a short break, but everybody seems to know the routine, and so we'll start in just a couple of minutes.
out, man. Okay, I think we're ready to go now. I'm gonna have to, everybody is in the holiday spirit. And then I gotta wrap the gavel. Annual financial audit report. It's that time of year. Patillo Brown and Hill, our auditors, have completed the audit. It's on the consent agenda for the board's consideration. But before we get there, we've got Clayton Rogers here from Patillo Brown and Hill to visit with the board about the audit. Clayton, floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, it's good to see I didn't chase everybody off.
Don't take it personally.
Well, thank you for having me. As you said, I'm with Patillo Brown and Hill, and we have just put the wraps on the fiscal year 2022 financial statement audit. And so I am here just to cover the results of the audit very, very briefly and answer any questions you might have. We have hard copies of the annual financial report, all 80-something pages of it. I was not planning on going into any of the detail in the interest of time. I did meet with Wesley and Dr. Kazanis last week, and we did go into a lot of the detail and talked about some of the financial highlights. And suffice it to say, unlike the first rating, we don't give you a letter grade, but everything's good. So just as a refresher, what we do as part of the audit, we don't look at every transaction. We don't look at every dollar. However, what we're looking to do is what they call reasonable assurance. And so that reasonable assurance is that these financial statements, in our opinion, are materially correct in accordance with accounting principles. And at the end of our audit, I'm happy to report that we're able to give what's known as an unmodified opinion. You'd know it as a clean opinion. And what that means is, in our opinion, these financial statements are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles in every material respect. Again, that doesn't mean perfect. It doesn't mean down to the dollar. However, what it does mean is that the information that's in here, in our opinion, is consistent with the accounting records of the district and with accounting principles, and is useful for decision-making for individuals, users of the financial statements, such as yourselves, the Texas Education Agency, perhaps most importantly, your bondholders. A few things corollary to that. We also we render another opinion as part of the federal single audit. That's simply a compliance audit that is required by federal law based on how much federal money you get. And we picked certain grant programs that you have. This year was the ESSER funds that everyone's been talking about. And of course, those federal funds come with a lot of strings attached to them. And so when we pick one of those programs, we do a deep dive on that program and look at a lot of the big significant compliance requirements that are attached to it and make sure that significant compliance has been achieved by the district. And at the end of that audit, just like the financial statements, we render an opinion, and I'm happy to report we're able to render an unmodified opinion on the district's compliance. And so in sum, financial statement audit, clean opinion, as good as it gets. Single audit, opinion over compliance, clean opinion, as good as it gets. A couple of other things that we just bring up for the purposes of your role as the board. Since we're dealing with taxpayer funds, we're working under government auditing standards, which deals with puts a number of extra compliance requirements on us as the auditor, and that we're required to report a number of things to you as the board if we had run across significant issues with internal control, significant fraud or abuse, or significant other issues like non-compliance with laws or regulations that might affect the financial statements. Some of those might be like bond covenants or the allocation of your property tax revenue, some things of that nature. Again, not looking at every law and every regulation, but the really big high-level ones that affect the financial statements. We had passed around a letter that contains all of those things, but I'm not going to go into it because fortunately, there were none of those things to report. And you will be perhaps unsurprised that it's a very dry read because of that. Probably was anyway, but. So I'm not going to, Dr. Kazanis asked that I give like the hour-and-a-half version of this, but I told him you might not appreciate that.
We work hard on that. We felt like everyone should see the, no, just kidding.
However, if you do have any questions or if you're feeling a little insomnia, I would be happy to crack this open and talk about some of the financial highlights. But if there's one thing you took away from what we talk about here, it's that from our perspective, there are no surprises in this document. We're not here to tell you that you're in good financial shape. That's something that the district's financial management is going to do. However, some of the things that they're going to talk about and that they've been communicating to you throughout the year, days cash in, or days expenditures in cash, how much fund balance you have, how is the district sitting with respect to the first rating, which was discussed earlier. All of those types of things that you have been seeing are going to continue to be the case. If you were to do a deep dive through this and really compare to the information you've been seeing, the big changes are not because of anything wild or crazy going on. It's the stuff that only gets adjusted once a year. Some long-term debt numbers, the TRS liabilities, those types of things that really only show up in this document and nowhere else. However, from our perspective, it was a smooth, clean, easy audit. And as I close, I would really like to thank Wesley and his staff, as well as Dr. Kazanis and everybody we worked with at the district, as well as yourselves, for really making a team effort, making a coordinated effort to make it as smooth and easy of an audit as possible. I guess it's a relative term. Audits are never easy. In fact, Wesley's probably ready to not see us again for 6 or 8 months until fiscal year 23. But they were all very forthcoming, willing to help, communicative, and had everything in shape that we needed to turn the audit around quickly and easily and be able to give you, again, a clean opinion over the financial statements. So I'd be happy to talk about the audit process or answer any questions you might have, or I can slowly exit stage left if.
Questions? We're good, I think. Clayton?
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you. Appreciate you coming out here.
Thank you, Wesley, and your team.
Yeah. And speaking of Wesley, the monthly finance report.
All right, good evening, members of the board. I'll give you a second to pull up the financial report for the month of November. We can skip down and look at page 4 of the financial report. We do have kind of our first projection there on the right-hand side, the chart of our average daily attendance. This is just based on the first couple 6 weeks of data. So, of course, as we accumulate more 6 weeks worth of information, our projection will get more precise. But we budgeted 8,042 of ADA, projecting 8,135. And really the number to look at is the WADA, a couple lines down from that. The weighted average ADA that kind of encapsulates all those special population of numbers of students there. We're projecting 10,433, higher than our budget of 10,236. So for state aid, what that means, just taking that into account, it would be about additional $1.2 million of additional state aid from what we budgeted, which is good news. Our expenditures, if you'll notice from page 1, are trending a little higher of what we've spent as a percentage of our total budget versus last year. But again, we still have quite a few months to go in the fiscal year, so we'll keep you updated on that as we progress throughout the year. I will move now down to page 12 of the financial report to look at our bond budget summary. It's really pretty similar to the last couple of times I've presented this document, looking at a favorable variance of about $5.6 million. Since this report was put into the board packet, we did get little more information from our construction audit team, which really didn't move that bottom number very much. There were a couple projects that maybe were going to be more positive, but kind of offset by a more negative. So really, we're looking at about $5.5 to $6 million at this juncture of kind of what we're going to have left over for our unused bond project funds. And I know later on the agenda, the board will have an opportunity to kind of discuss how to maybe prioritize those unused bond funds and maybe come up with a plan. But the last 2 pages, just for your information, our architect, Huckabee, drew up some projections of some possible projects that the original bond committee had looked at for athletics at the high school, new locker rooms, practice gym, team meeting addition. And just to kind of, I'll go over that first one with on the last page, the practice gym. It has the square footage, total construction cost, which includes that contingency amount of $193,000, and then FF&E is a percent. It's based off a percentage of the construction cost for furniture, fixtures, and equipment for a total estimated cost of $4.7 million. That's for the practice gym. Now, just to remind you, kind of similarly to what we did when we originally did the bond. Huckabee gives us these numbers based on similar projects that they've done, looked at across the state, a price per square foot. But we don't know the actual cost, of course, until we actually put it out to bid. And so just like in our bond, some of our projects came under what we estimated, and some were over, depending on kind of the bids we get back, and sometimes the scope of the projects change as well. But these should be pretty straightforward as far as the scope of the project. Huckabee did say we can, if we're ready to put it out for bid, if we like to do that, we can have contractors bid, and we can reject or accept any or all of those items. So 1 through 4 we could accept, or a number of them, or we could reject them all depending on what we get back. So just to kind of give you an idea of...
Do they already have construction documents?
No, we would have to get that ready.
And are those costs for the construction documents in the estimate?
That is a good question. They are? Okay. Mr. Freeman says they are, yes. So and then, all of those together, you'll see kind of there at the bottom, an estimate would be $9.5 million. So of course that's a little outside of what we have left over, but that kind of gives us an idea.
Mr. Brooks included those as well, but also you'll notice later in the agenda tonight, we can look at that plus some other things. It was also repeated there on the subsequent agenda items, so we'll go through those. Maybe.
Is Brad here?
Yeah, we'll go through those, if you don't mind, in more detail when we talk about all the bond. But he's here, yeah.
Oh, thanks, Brad. You're way in the back there.
Question on the bond funds remaining on screen. So I noticed, I guess I'm expecting these to drop closer to zero faster than they are. I noticed the Chapel Park and Park Hill each have well over $1 million left to complete. Is that, we still feel pretty good about where that plane's going to land, or what is it that's left to complete that's not FF&E?
Right. Yeah. So still on our
Maybe that's a question for Buddy. I don't know.
Well, the 1.9 is still due to John Irwin, our contractor.
Oh, okay.
So there's
Haven't
just
billed us yet.
a small percentage that's still,
Okay.
Until everything is finished, our construction auditor, finishes their audit and signs off on everything, then we'll finish that out.
We always hold out final payment for all punch list
as we should.
items to be finished, things like that.
Any more questions on the financial report?
Appears not, Leslie.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. We will move to the library audit process. Aaron, you going to cover that one for us?
Yes, sir. Thank you, President Russick, members of the board, Dr. Kazanis. So as you may be aware, we've had a library audit underway for books. I just want to kind of go over also our formal reconsideration process that we adopted back in September. So we do have established policies, and our library materials need to be need to comply with these three things here that we have listed: the school library program standards and guidelines for Texas, SIPA, or Children's Internet Protection Act, and then also the Penal Code, particularly the sections for harmful material or obscene material. And so I just want to briefly go over the selection process and some of the safety precautions that we do have in place. And we did look at this a few months ago, but just as a brief reminder, our librarians look at a 14-point criteria list to try to make the best selection possible. They are not always going to be able to read every library book that comes into a collection, because sometimes they're purchasing hundreds of books at a time that come in all at once. And so they look at awards lists, they look at the Texas Library Association's recommendations, they look at neighboring district lists, they also look at review sites such as Common Sense Media or Parents Guide and different sites like that. They also, like mentioned above, look at some safety measures as well, like SIPA. They want to make sure that it is in compliance with the Penal Code as well. One of the main things that they're looking for also is age appropriateness for the book, because you can imagine an 8th grader may be, allowed to read a certain book, or a book may be appropriate for an 8th grader, but not an incoming 6th grader. There are such huge gaps between just those middle school years especially. We also have some other safety measures, such as continual review and weeding that the librarians are doing just on a weekly and monthly basis. We also have an established complaint and review process. And also there's a young adult designation, like I mentioned, for middle school, to alert the librarians and to alert students too that a certain book might be more appropriate for an older audience. And then finally, the library materials are all self-selected. There is never a book that a student is compelled to read that's in any library. So we do have some guiding principles when a library resource is challenged formally. And the first one is that we as a district need to remember that although a librarian is trained to select the books and is going through, according to policy, this 14-point criteria list, there may be times where a parent or a community member still objects to a particular library material and that we need to take a look at. Also, that control over, another guiding principle is that control over library materials extends only to a parent's own child. And then finally, access to the challenged materials during the formal review process is, according to policy, not to be restricted except for possibly to the parent's own child. So that one of the major criteria for the final decision, like I mentioned briefly before, is age appropriateness of the material for its intended use. That sounds easy enough, but it gets a little more complicated when you have multiple readers reviewing a book, and we're learning that as we're going through this process. But no challenged material shall be removed, according to our policy, solely because of the ideas expressed therein. So, what should a person do if they object to a library resource or a library book and they would like it to be reconsidered? Well, the first thing that we ask people to do is to talk to the librarian or the principal of the particular campus. A lot of times an informal agreement can be reached. We can put a note or a pop-up that comes up on the screen when the librarian is checking out a book for a particular child to not have access to a certain book. So there are things that can be done informally. But if a formal objection is going to be raised, then and I should have used different language here because the policy actually says that a complainant shall make a formal challenge to a library material on the form provided by the district and shall submit the completed and signed form to the principal. And what this does is it triggers the formation of a reconsideration committee, which comprises the librarian and at least one instructional staff member. And then also, and as we're learning going through this process, that other members of the committee may include other district level staff members, parents, possibly other teachers, community members. And that is something we're learning, that it's a good idea to have a larger group than two, because sometimes you're going to need an odd number, is what we're discovering, 3, maybe 5. So the reconsideration committee then, the members will read the entirety of the book or the challenge material. We have developed a rubric for the book reviewers to kind of go through. It's a sort of a flow chart. And the focus is on the penal code language. The person has to ask him or herself, is there obscene or harmful material in the book? And then also, is there vital or important or serious, I believe the penal code uses the word serious, literary value or value that's contributed. And then they need to really do the best they can to determine the age appropriateness as well. So we did have books that were brought to our attention. And again, as a reminder, we're going through an internal audit right now. We are not under the policy-driven formal reconsideration because no one has formally brought that to us through our forums and following the process. However, we have had 43 books brought to our attention, and so we decided we needed to go ahead and take a look. If books are potentially harmful for students, we want to take a look and take appropriate action. So 4 of the books on the 43 book list were determined right off the bat to not be in any of our Midway libraries. Thankfully so, because one of those books I saw some excerpts from and it just knocked my socks off. I thought, oh my goodness. So those 4 books are not even a consideration. 6 books have been read, reviewed, and have already been pulled from our Midway library collections, either due to sexual representations that are not age appropriate, or some of these books had not been checked out for multiple years, and so they needed to be weeded out anyway. We do have 13 books that are currently still under review, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Either we have to have that third reviewer come in, we have a person still, the second person may still be reading the book and still is thinking through and trying to make those determinations. And I do want to make sure that we understand that it may not be as black and white as this book stays, this book gets removed. There may be some nuanced decisions there. It could be that a book is moved to an older campus, maybe from middle school to high school. It could be that a book is determined to be put in a special section where it's by request only, potentially. And so there are different decisions that can be made, but certainly if a book is determined to be inappropriate and obscene, it will be removed, as we have with a few others already. Now, we do have 20 books on the list of 43 that have been reviewed, again, through our internal audit. So they have been read, they have been looked at, and they have been determined to not contain any sexually explicit content. However, they may contain themes to which some people object based on ideological reasons or differences. But as our EFB local states, that no challenged library material shall, and I have to specify that word shall, it's not may, be removed solely because of the ideas expressed therein. So these particular books, the 20, could potentially be formally reviewed through our reconsideration process if a parent or community member follows the procedure for reconsideration of library materials. But as of right now, those books, according to the policy, are not in that formal reconsideration process. So once we have completed our internal audit, and once we have gone through those 13 books and a decision has been made, a report of all of the findings will be written up and submitted to, well, the superintendent.
Thank you very much for that. So again, Dr. Pena, I was quickly add, thank you very much. I think Dr. Pena, and I think also leading this is Dr. Stacy Boyd, our Director of Elementary Curriculum and Education, as well as, of course, our librarians. Our librarians certainly have been intricately involved in this process. So really, board members, if you're looking at what Dr. Pena just presented to you, it was just a way to capture what you approved in August. That is this policy EFB, and Dr. Pena just kind of put it in terms of operationally. So that is the process, that is could be how it would be handled. And we just wanted to be proactive and get in front just so everyone understands what it could look like. And so halfway through this presentation, you might recall, yes, we were presented a list of books, and that's why we thought Why not? Look at our process of review of the books and just begin it. And so that's why then the second part of the presentation was talking about the different numbers, how many weren't checked out and all that kind of thing. And so they're still in the middle of this and still working through it. But again, I appreciate their efforts and work, because this isn't easy. This isn't an easy process whatsoever. There is so many materials and books and publishers and things like that in our world these days, and open sources. And so I know they're working diligently in this area, but we just felt like you should see operationally what this process would look like. And so after that, I'll just close with in policy, if there is one, and it'll follow through the policy. And there could be at some point that comes to the board, and it would be though on a specific title. Am I incorrect?
Yes, sir. If the decision is made that the complainant or the person who brings forth the reconsideration form doesn't agree with, then they can go through either F&G local or GF local.
And go through the complaint process.
Questions from the board?
I got a couple. So has anything changed on the prevention side? I mean, so we had 4 books that we need to remove. Are we doing anything, have we changed any procedures on the front end to keep objectionable materials from making it into the system?
So no, not formally to what's in policy, but I do know that there is a heightened awareness with our librarians and, you know, books that are coming through that even could be potentially questionable. We are getting better at finding sites that do legitimate and good and thorough reviews of books. So in those ways, yes, but nothing formal that we have added. One of the things that in policy does say that we can have other professionals as well. We're still kind of thinking through how that practically would look, because having a standing committee, the librarians are ordering books just all the time. And so we're trying to think through practically how potentially we could add another layer, but I couldn't tell you right now what the ideas are.
Okay. And the other one is probably I see as the bigger challenge here, the subjectiveness that comes out of this.
Oh, yes.
Right. Some ideas are deemed harmful, and that's some of the language that we've, is talked about. Some might view those ideas harmful, some may not. How are you going to navigate that? How are you going to navigate the subjectiveness of the material and the ideas? It's easy, it's cut and dried if it's obscene, materials. That's a no-brainer, I think,
yes,
for all of us. But
there's some that would fall kind of in that gray area where it depends on the reviewer. Do you consider this too far or not? We're dealing with that right now, and that's why there were some books that we had already moved to the, we're going to potentially move these books out. And kind of we brought a few back in to just have more people read for that very purpose. And that's why we're thinking through the practicals of what's written in the policy. We do have the ability to form a larger committee. I like the idea of forming a larger committee, but then we also need to consider, well, what kind of training? We do a lot of inter-rater reliability training with people who go in and determine, what a walkthrough is, and, grading teachers and that sort of thing. So we kind of need to set something up here with this. Some districts that I've talked to, some library leads, have just a committee formed when the issue arises. Others, which I do like, have a standing committee that they pull from regularly, and then they're able to kind of do some ongoing training and take a look at books as a group of, however many people are on the committee. When it's just kind of not in the middle of the formal process, they can kind of determine, like, are we all kind of agreeing that this passage is obscene or this is not? But we're still working through that, Mr. Tullis, to be honest.
Do you foresee us needing to change or strengthen the policy? It sounds like some of what you're talking about is kind of going beyond the way the policy is written currently. I mean, should we look at that, look at the policy and?
That's up to you. In my opinion, I don't think so. I think it gives us the flexibility. It doesn't necessarily just, put us in a box, because if we had a lot of specificity, we might be learning that, it really isn't working right now. So this process with these 43 books, we are learning quite a bit through it. And I think in the end, what we'll come up with when we, develop admin guidelines and kind of flesh out what's in policy, we should end up with something that most people, there's not ever going to be everyone, but most people are happy with. And it also works practically for our teachers and for our professionals. Did I answer you?
But, real quickly to answer your question,
Yeah.
if you don't mind,
No.
is you're never going to take subjectivity out. I'm just going to be honest with you. Of reviewers. So we can't write a policy that takes any subjectivity out when you're talking about library materials, a book. And so I think what I heard and what I keep seeing happening too is the process, but also the age appropriateness of it. And so I think that is one thing too we've learned in looking at if it was maybe on an elementary shelf, it should be at middle, or at least middle should be not on, up until high school. Things like that too, because that has helped somewhat us to look at our full collections and see some should not be at a certain grade level, they should be a little bit older. Grade levels, things like that too. And so I just think age appropriateness has been also helpful in a review of this. But I think what I heard Dr. Pena said and Dr. Voigt in committees, that you have to look harder at reviews, sources of reviews of the books too, as well, and good sources of that.
That's right.
To help, because it's, as I said, it's monumental when you look at the sheer volume of library materials.
You mentioned having this audit committee, and I hope I'm hearing you right. Would it be helpful if we had for you a regular meeting committee like we do with the SHAC? I'd love to say the more complex an issue is, the more critical it is that we look at it from multiple points of view, and you've already spoken to that. Would it be helpful if we had something in place where we had a regularly meeting committee that's just all they did, however often they needed to get together?
Yes, we, at the last MAST meeting, we did kind of go through an exercise. It kind of helped look at that rubric, that flow chart. I keep calling it both because it kind of is its own animal, and we're still tweaking it, but they helped to contribute to that. And we did let them know that although that decision hadn't been made yet, that they may end up being that committee, because we do have regular meetings. We have community representatives and parent representatives, as well as teachers from every campus. And so it stands to reason that would make a whole lot of sense. We could then provide that kind of training. We can invite librarians to come in, kind of explain the selection process, and kind of schedule that throughout the year as well. So we're considering that. We've already taken up, a step towards that. But we haven't, again, written up the admin guide. We're kind of getting through this process first. Really wanted to see what we learned from it, what were the mistakes that we made along the way, to come up with the best steps and guidelines moving forward.
Well, it's highly complex, so if there's something we can be doing, reaching out to the community, giving you bringing extra sets of eyes to the table, so that you're not having to funnel all this information all on your own. Just let us know.
Thank you, I appreciate that, yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because I remember 3 or 4 months ago when we approved the policy, we had a little discussion about it. And I think it's actually good that you're having a chance to put this into practice sort of unofficially right now. So two questions. One, I know we're not in formal reconsideration, but do you have others in the community involved right now in these books, or are you still really primarily with librarians and teachers who are looking at these at this stage?
Right now, we are working with librarians and instructional staff, and to be quite honest, we've really have been recruiting to have people read, and we've tapped a lot of our curriculum and instruction people. I couldn't tell you definitely, but believe most, if not all of those folks are parents of kids in Midway schools now, but they're professional staff
Sure,
members.
right.
Yes, and so,
But that's
when,
done on this, at this particular stage, because this is voluntary what we're doing.
Right, and that's it.
And-
I know we're not informal.
And the
reconciliation.
staff that we have, that's what they're tasked to do. I trust as teachers and as librarians that they will make good decisions and understand the community that we work in now, you know, that they work in, and their parents too, as Dr. Pena said. So that none of these have been officially challenged.
Right.
And so I
That-
think that what the committee that they have used is, to my opinion, very good and is above and beyond that we're asking others to do. They're just voluntarily reading and helping
Really,
with this
the
particular.
nature of my
book.
question
So-
was to see, are we able to explore how it works to bring parents in yet or not? That's
No,
the reason I was
because they
asking.
haven't been official, no.
Right. So the other question, I guess, is the status of these books, the ones that are, the list that you said have been provided, are we communicated back to that person yet? Are we waiting till the rest of these 13 are finished to do that?
no, we have not yet. I was planning on communicating with the superintendent first, and then going with his direction after that. And as far as how much, of course, I need to go back to policy and touch. I'm still learning. It's a lot. There's a lot in here, but we certainly want to be as forthcoming as possible. We want to also eventually have our process, our forms, the committee potentially out there for parents and community members to see. We're just not quite there yet.
Well, thanks for going through this and for the librarians who are involved and
thank
everyone
you.
else too. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? So Aaron, on the 13 books that are currently still under review, I take it none of those have the history of not being checked out for at least 6 years? Because if they had that, they'd have already been pulled?
Yes, sir. Some are popular.
Okay.
What do you say?
What did you say?
Some are popular.
Oh, that's what he said, of the 13, some were popular.
Yeah.
So yeah, some are being checked out, regularly, and again, those some have been reviewed. I believe I may be representing myself here, but I believe of the 13, all are at least completely read by one person. There may be a couple that are getting finished up, like here during this week. But there are several that need to still be completed by the second reviewer, and some might need to go to a third reviewer.
And if, I heard you use the phrase several times, and I just want to be sure that I'm understanding what y'all are contemplating, and that is, as y'all work through this basically district initiative process for these going forward, not necessarily having board policy that speaks to this sort of internal review that's not a reconsideration formal process under EFB, but it's the district just doing its due diligence, not a board policy, but y'all intend to develop administrative guidelines so that going forward, as people come and go from different positions, we've at least got something that everybody knows internally, this is how we handle it.
Yes, I believe
I mean, I
I'm
understand
following.
y'all aren't there yet, but that's ultimately where the administration intends to end up.
Yes, however, the librarian does reserve the right to weed the collection, go through the collection, remove books when they deem it's appropriate. And so this is not intended to take that professionalism away from them. But yes, we do want to develop the more specific procedures that are not outlined in policy. Who beyond the instructional person and the librarian will be on the committee, how often we'll meet, the kind of training that we'll give those people, how many, if it will be a parent of that particular age group, or will it be a community member? Those kind of nuanced decisions we still want to work through and develop those.
Right, and I wasn't suggesting for a minute that the administrative guidelines and that process would usurp the librarians in their professional role. That's not the point. I just wanted to be clear, that was where we wanted to end up, and that was outside of the formal reconsideration process, because we already got a board policy that speaks to that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But we will have an administrative guideline that matches EFB local, just to provide us with more specifics on how we can make sure that we're fulfilling the policy while also taking care of as much of the subjectivity and things like that we've been already contending with.
Yeah.
Right.
I would assume a consistency between district or schools and their libraries, you know, that's probably a challenge. You got lots of libraries and yeah, having some consistent guidelines there. Yeah.
Yes, we do want to have guidelines across grade levels and across levels here at Midway. So again, these are the things that we need to develop.
Yeah.
Once a book is pulled. Is it pulled only from, the Midway Middle School library collection, but not the River Valley Middle School library collection, and those kind of things that we're still navigating. We haven't dealt with that now. These 6 books that have been pulled, they've been pulled from all library collections, but as Midway grows and we add more schools down the line, we want to make sure that our practices are, just doing the right thing for kids and for parents.
Very good. Anybody else? All right, we have a person, Ms. Ballou, that signed up to speak to this agenda item. Ms. Ballou, we appreciate you being here this evening. Under our board policy, folks that sign up to speak to an agenda item, you have 3 minutes to address the board. I think we have. Yeah, there you go, all right. So that we don't have to have our, any board member try to keep a clock and that sort of thing, and to give frankly, the person that's standing where you are the courtesy, so okay?
I understand that, absolutely. Thank you so
Good
much
deal.
for your time.
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I am Denise Ballou. Debbie Anderson is with me. We are on a committee through the Republican Women, McLennan County Republican Women. One of the top priorities for next year in Texas is the sexualization of children. And library books is a big thing, as you all know. And it's not just at Midway, it's all over the United States and Texas. Who would think that we'd have this problem in Texas? But I want to thank you ahead of time. Dr. Pena has been wonderful. Dr. Voigt has been wonderful. I feel like we're in a team effort here, which is fantastic, because we all want the same thing. We all want to protect our children. And so Dr. Pena has gone over so many things that I feel like I was needing to cover, but I don't think I need to cover that now. On those 2 penal codes in the EFB, on 43.24, it says sale, distribution, or display of harmful material to minors. And it does say minor, meaning an individual younger than 18 years of age. And more information on that, of course, in that penal code. Penal code 43.21 goes over the definition of obscenity. And it says under subcategory, I would think you would say B, depicts or describes sexual acts, sexual intercourse, masturbation, and it goes on arousal, performance, and what all those words mean in legal terms, so to speak. I know there's an appeal process, and we're going to look into that after all of this gets accomplished. We thank you so much, because I know this is a lot of time and effort. It's hard to imagine why any type of sexual book is even appropriate in a school library. Our children are just being, they're being attacked at every level. Social media, there's so many TV commercials, whatever. But with our schools, I would hope that we could protect our children. from being exposed to this stuff. And I understand age appropriate, and yes, that's very important. One of the books that was at the middle school talked about oral sex. I'll just be honest with you. So that book has no place. And thank you for those that are being removed. Personally speaking, I don't think any book that deals with any type of sex is appropriate for a school library. But thank you for all the work you're doing, and we are here to help in any way that we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ballou. We appreciate that, and I think you have very appropriately captured where this district is in the interest of trying to make sure that the materials in our libraries is appropriate for our students, and age appropriate being a very, very key consideration. Anything else from the board on this one before we move on? All right, very good. Midway Middle School construction update. We're limited to one school now, buddy.
Yes.
For now.
Don't even start. One.
Mr. Russick, Dr. Kazanis, board members, I want to say thank you. Thank you for what you do, and also thank you for 5 years ago, you voted to allow me to be part of the Midway team. Hope it's been as good for you as it has been for me.
We're looking
Thank
at
you.
excess bond funds, buddy, so.
And to answer your question a little more in depth, Mr. Witt, closing out things, there's a process. During the construction, we hold 5% of every subcontractor's contract until the end. That's called retainage. And we haven't even paid out all of the retainage yet because some of the subcontractors haven't satisfactorily finished what they were obligated to do in their contract. Most of that retainage has been paid out over the past few months. And then Huckabee also has a checklist for closeout documents, and that would include things like the as-bills, all the warranty letters, different things that they require. And they're not going to approve the final payout until all of those things are met by the contractor. And there was one other thing, but it left me.
That's fine, thanks.
5 years ago. you might
Oh,
have
yes,
remembered.
yes, yes.
Wow.
The other
This is
thing,
the guy who's retired.
one of the final payouts will include a change order to reduce the contract amount by the money that we didn't spend.
Yeah, okay.
And so that hasn't been done, and that's probably not going to be done until Debbie Townsend finishes her audits. John Irwin contacted me last week about getting that process started with their project. So did Cloud. So those should be coming in the near future. To the middle school, phase 2. We moved in to the north side of the building during the Thanksgiving break. Everything went as planned. We did have to move a portable building from DAEP over to the middle school. That gives us 14 portable classrooms. 6 of those, or 3 of the buildings, are ours that we own, and the others we are renting from Mobile Modular. Thank you, by the way, for giving the teachers the day to set up their classrooms. That really helped. That really made things go well. And thank you for letting us move things to an earlier time of that transition, because something has come up now that we're needing that extra time for. We have an unforeseen issue with asbestos. There are a couple of existing exterior walls from the original building that we are having to cut through for either door openings or windows. And once we pull the outside brick off, the waterproofing that was used on the block that's inside it contains asbestos. And so we had asbestos abatement contractors come today and look at it, and we're planning to get bids on removing that. We'll get the bids tomorrow and hope they start at the end of the week. So that's going to be a couple of week process. So it's good that we had a little bit of extra time for that, because we didn't know. There was just no way of knowing it was there because it was between the brick and the Haydite block wall, and I mean you couldn't see it until they took the brick off. One other thing that is changing is during Christmas, we're going to turn over the cafeteria. And so they're building temporary walls. And one thing that we did change is we're going to build a scaffolding bridge across the end of the gymnasium. So, because we have to have a level way to make our ADA path go from the north side over to the PAC. And it was to come around in front of the stage. But we have figured out a way that we can build a temporary bridge across the end of the gym, and Brad has signed off on it. And it will allow us to get more work done in the cafeteria before summer gets here. So, and one good thing that came out of that is because of the way it's all going to be put together, the cafeteria people will get to continue to use 2 of their serving lines. Because we're going to have lunch, serve lunch in the red gym, but it's still going to be cooked in the kitchen because we renovated the kitchen last summer. And but they're going to get to use 2 of their serving lines that we didn't know we were going to until last week. So those 2 things came up since I sent this report out to you. Loading and unloading of buses has moved back to the north side. That's good. We put temporary awnings over some of the wood ramps to help with the rainy conditions. Like I said, during the Christmas break, the cafeteria will be walled off, and so that and the courtyard will be closed down for the remaining part of the spring semester. The renovation work in the front parking lot, which includes redoing that parking lot and removing some of the berms, that will all take place in the summer. And the furniture order, we have started on that. Hope to get some numbers on that next week. Is that what she said, Wesley? Any questions?
I know I had sent you a note about lighting that a grandparent had asked me about getting in and out of the PAC with the lighting, and I know from this, it looks like the courtyard's completely closed. So what is the ingress and egress for the PAC and the lighting situation?
So that day, Abel was over there looking at that with Daryl, and they think they came up with some solutions to help with that. We are trying to, Daryl wanted to keep that porch right there in front of that first set of doors that go into the backstage. He wanted to keep that accessible, so that's why we moved our fence over there as we can. But Daryl needed an outlet fixed so he could put a temporary light up, and he's gotten that fixed. And then Abel was also looking at some of the wall packs, and I think he was looking at maybe changing the bulbs in that porch. Because those lights were on, but they weren't very bright. Right. So he was looking at changing that. So I think we've got it improved.
So that's the ingress and egress for the PAC then for the spring is through that entrance, or is there a different way?
The back, they can come in the back way over by the gym.
Okay, so that's the plan for
yeah.
Okay.
Because at some point we'll have to completely close that off.
Right, I figured that was.
And then they're going to have to come in the back way of the gym. But instead of doing that the whole spring semester, Daryl asked if we could just give him that little walkway right there to help.
Okay.
I know you're still waiting on bids for the asbestos abatement, but do we know, have any idea what kind of neighborhood we're in as far as that goes? How many zeros?
So we got one bid, and it was $70,000 was the bid. And then it'll take about 10 of the ESIS, the company that oversees it and monitors the air and gets it tested and all that. And that's why we asked for some more bids, because we felt like that one was too high.
Okay.
So, but it'll be under that.
Okay. That's
funded through contingencies, correct?
Contingencies, there's $300,000 in contingency for the owner, for the contractor. Okay. And we're going to take this out of their $300,000. We're down to about $200,000 left of our owner's contingency.
Just wanted to see what kind of impact this might have on all the extra money we.
It's not going to. It should not affect the total contract amount at all. We're still fine with our contingencies and allowances we had.
That's why we hired you 5 years ago.
Anybody else? All right, good deal. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
excess bond funds and the usage thereof. Let me just say, we got a number of people that have signed up to speak to this agenda item. I'm not gonna take those up now. I'm gonna let the administration make its presentation first. Let the board ask questions, make their comments. I know Ms. Vick could not be here this evening, and she had sent me an email, and I told her that I would make the board aware of how she felt about this item, keeping in mind, most importantly, this is a discussion-only item tonight. The board's not going to take any action with regard to this item. The board will have to have a future agenda item where actual action by the board making a decision or decisions of how to spend the excess funds, because at this point in time, I understand that we're not in a scenario where we have no idea what the number is going to be, but as Wesley alluded, yeah, we might still have several $100,000 swing one way or the other. So I think for me, I won't speak for anybody else, I want to know pretty close what the number is before we start making these decisions, because as most people that have been paying attention know, even though our projected WADA numbers, if they hold for the remainder of the year, we'll get some help. We still are underwater on our budgeting, and we'd already spent significant money out of the general fund, and so we're real tight on being at the board number and at a healthy number financially for that. So that's not to say that the board can't make a decision down the line to spend some from the general fund, but we don't have a lot of leeway there if we want to keep the fund balance in a range that's what the board's wanted to do before. So that said, Wesley, I saw your name on this. I saw George's name on it. Who's going to talk?
I will. I'll start, and then Wesley, he'll help me fill in a number or two. So members of the board, members of the public that are here this evening, in our board packet, as Mr. Russick said, he took a lot of things I was going to say. I appreciate that very much. But just as a couple reminders about this bond project, this was in the 2020 bond project. And one of the things that, of course, want to start with is, of course, we're in an enviable position. We're in a position where these projects were under budget and on time and things like that. So we're very, very fortunate. We've done everything that was in the $148 million bond proposal that was presented to our community. It passed 66% at the time in November of 2019. And so we have completed and or almost completed, as Mr. Freeman talks, is our last project is the middle school renovation. So we've done everything that we said. And so what I wanted just to remind folks about, and the board and those listening about, is that included, though, we have been able to do some additional items that made sense to do in the bidding in the process. And that included, for example, the technology center. So we had a certain amount in our bond proposal, but not near the amount that was needed to complete the building, the former EMSI building that we now have our information technology center in, as well as our training center for the staff and our Horizons program, our non-traditional high school program that is now has its own home that was formerly in portable buildings and things like that. And so having that there and having that under one roof and with new roof, new HVACs was phenomenal to have that building. So that has been completed, signed, and delivered. We also remember in the fine art area had the request for a band practice lot and served also the dual purpose for more parking at our theater in front of the high school. That was done as an alternate, you remember, and when we bid out the Career Tech Center, and it was done, so it's been completed. We have that now, it's been used already for a full season. We also had as an alternate widening the drive in front of the high school that we now have at least now a lane for temporary parking, things like that. So that was in addition to our project. So we're thrilled about that. Fine arts equipment was part of it, but did not make it, but Mr. Umhofer has been able to do that. More equipment in the fine arts area. I don't have the detail about everything, but included with fine arts equipment was some renovations to the PAC that we were able to do. So that was bid, and we're able to do those too. You might recall Spring Valley Elementary School being able to improve the front drive and have that connected in the drive, and then a road built in the back for egress as well. So we've done that as well because it was just really a pitch need for it with all the Spring Valley road improvements that were being done by TxDOT and things like that. And finally, in what Mr. Freeman just talked about, on one of the things that caught my mind was the front of the middle school. That wasn't necessarily at all talked about until now, and with the renovation in the front parking lot and the things like that. So that will also be completed in part of it. And so very again, thankful that we were able to do that. We are, as I said, in this position, but frankly, this normally happens later. It normally happens when all bills are paid, and then you do have a solid number, as Mr. Russick said. Having a solid number is critical. All the projects I've been a part of, this is probably the 5th overall bond in my career, going through and deciding happens at the bitter end, at the very, very end when you really have paid the bills. But it's good to talk about it, and maybe part of it was triggered on, yes, we have a lot of needs, other needs in the district, but also would like to because of the nature of that with inflation and construction. And so, yeah, it's fine. We do need to talk about it and start getting and hearing from the board in the community about what some of the priorities could be. I would certainly wish that number were higher. I'm looking here without my glasses, but it looks like it's $5.6 to $6 million where we stand. And as Mr. Brooks said, that could waver a little bit, but we're not expecting major changes from the final closeouts for River Valley Middle School, for Park Hill, Chapel Park, and the CTE addition, because we're very, very close to finalizing those. And so that's kind of a rough number. So now let me talk real quickly about the bond steering committee back then, our strategic planning, what occurred. In summary, the number of $148 million was chosen. We were able then to reduce our tax rate a little bit, present that to the public, and the bond passed. But cut from that was specifically the last item, item 10, was some of the athletic improvements, and that included locker room expansions, mainly locker room expansions, and some remodeling of the current high school. And so that was not included in the $148 million bond. We learned that from some surveying we had done earlier in the summer before the bond with our community about tolerance and dollar numbers and things like that in projects. Athletics are tough too. There's in the future, all of athletic type of expenditures would have to be a separate item on a referendum. We can no longer put them together. Like I just mentioned, $148 total million was our bond. If you have anything with fine arts and or athletics, they'd have to be separated and voted on separately by the public. And so those are what are called bond referendums. And so what Mr. Freeman and Brad Shelton, athletic director, and in consultation with our architect Huckabee, had just looked at some options. And so let me start there. If you're looking in your board packet, and Ms. Wynn, if you could pull that up for the public there. Let's just start. This was potential locker room, practice gym additions. Just a rough drawing. This would be basically if you're looking at the arena of Midway High School to the left of that. There's a little bit. We're looking at using, if we could, every inch of the property that we have there at Midway High School. And looking at this reasoning, behind the practice gymnasium is we actually have less gym space at at Midway High School than we did when we were at the current Midway Middle School. It has 3 gyms, whereas we have the arena and another gym. And so that always has been in the back of the mind as we've grown as a district at some point. Locker rooms haven't changed since the school was built. It was built and designed for about 1,800 students. We have, in terms of the locker rooms, we have 2,600 students. We have more participants in all of our sports. And so again, that's just like squeezing in classrooms, you're squeezing in locker rooms. And so that's why, just briefly, why that discussion was there and why it bubbled up to one of the top 10 things of a possible bond. So I just wanted to be clear. And so as I said, there you go. There you have in your board packet. Ms. Wynn, if you'll go to the next page with some of the costs. I think Mr. Brooks was talking about them. Mr. Freeman's been talking about them. I don't know if you can. Okay, thank you. Just looking at the practice gym, again, this is not our competition. It's with seating, but maybe a volleyball locker room expansion there for JV and varsity, a football locker room possibility, team meeting rooms. And so you can see some of the different options down there. If you did them all, that 9.4, 9.5 million and breaking them out as well. And so there's different costs. And so these are preliminary cost estimates. They haven't been, of course, bid. We don't have a contractor on staff doing this at this particular time. They're just some rough estimates. And so that is, as you can see, really would be a pick and choose, if you will. We don't have the dollars to do all of that at $9.5 million. Mr. Russick is correct in looking at our general fund. We did spend some general fund dollars last year that was just audited, that the auditor presented to you. Part of that went in was I believe about 1.7 million in fund balance expenditures last school year for capital improvements. And so we do have to look at that. I appreciate that discussion of being careful and cognizant of our own general dollars, if any of them could be used. So that's there. Other things, though, that kept bubbling up, and so, Ms. Wynn, if you'll go to the next one, was, again, these were just being in tune to the community, being in tune to our PTAs, to groups, was, I'm not sure which one you have up, good, the pricing for playgrounds. And so, again, Mr. Freeman, after we did construct Chapel Park and constructed Park Hill and worked with 2 different vendors for playgrounds and went through those, yes, we're very proud of those, and we know that playgrounds do need improvements across all of the districts. And so again, these were just quotes, not bid numbers. There's, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Freeman, a couple of main vendors, main construction that build these, right?
There are. This one was Lee Park and Lakeview, those little ties.
Right. Yeah, so if we went this route, of course, we'd go through a process, put it out for competitive sealed proposal, and go from there. But this is rough estimates of what could be needed. Again, we wouldn't want to go back. We'd want to work with each campus, each PTA, get some student input. Would be my advice, my recommendation about the actual design of the playground. You know, build up's what we did. I had a committee of students that helped with Park Hill and Chapel Park when they were designed. So, yeah, it's just, but some hearing so far what was said, some things that might need to be done. So as you can see, that total estimate is 1.7, almost $1.8 million for the other 6 elementary schools in the district. I wouldn't call it a hard number, but it's a good estimate, right? Mr. Freeman? Okay. And then finally, that's in the board packet, we had some discussion, though, about digital signage across the district. And so, again, it's all being equitable, looking at campuses and areas that have digital signs. That type of technology gets better and better every time as the years roll by. And so we've been working with the same company that, for example, we just recently replaced the scoreboard at Panther Stadium, Daktronics. And Daktronics was able to give us some quotes at looking at our district marquee that's right there on Mars Drive and Hewitt Drive, as well as looking at, as you can see, some of these other Spring Valley, Castleman, South Bosque, Woodway, things like that for digital signage. We're able to do signage, for example, at River Valley Middle School. We would look at that at Midway Middle School under its renovation, I think, with its renovation package, things like that. But so that, as you can see, a number not as large as some of the other numbers, $280,000. But I'm sure there have been other things that, again, this was just a start to the process of looking at and beginning to get some dollar amounts, right, for consideration. Where we are, but I wish the number was 10, 12 million dollars at this time, but it's just not. And so we are going to have to prioritize and make some decisions, the board will, about how to expend those. Let me just remind everybody too, remember, these are dollars that have to be spent though on capital improvements. These are not dollars that can go into the general fund and be spent in any other way, paid on teacher salaries or anything like that. The bond program, the bond funds is one fund, and you spend it for bond projects approved by your voters, as well as what's in excess, what this board decides to expend it on. It's not part of the general fund dollars to be used for the budget. So, any questions so far?
And before you go to questions, if you're done.
Yes, sir.
I'm going
to
take the liberty of letting the board know what Ms. Vick has to say
great. Oh, yes.
about this, and then,
questions.
Because obviously she's not here to ask questions, but I want to get this out, and then the board can ask questions, make comments, and then we'll hear from the folks that have signed up to speak to this agenda item. So, Ms. Vick, eliminating the numbers, because y'all got the numbers in front of you, she says that she would do this with the excess bond proceeds: renovate all the playgrounds, renovate the lockers to create the new volleyball locker room, build the addition for the new football locker room. That totals roughly $5.55 million. If we've got additional money beyond that and there's enough of it there, like another $1 million, build the team meeting addition. Her view is she is fine with spending from the general fund to pay for the marquee expense. As she expresses it, she strongly believes all of the schools need updated and inclusive playgrounds. That's definitely her first priority. That would benefit many students, many families. She knows we need and want a new gym, but she thinks the locker rooms are needed now, definitely for future growth. She knows the kids would feel better in the bigger spaces, and that message would be sent home by doing that part of it. She mentions that she knows we've had theft issues and the additional locker room space would help, and that her view would be that ultimately the new practice gym would be for our next bond package. She doesn't specify time frame from her viewpoint of when that would be, but that's what Susan had to say about this. And so, very good. Questions from the board for the administration, or comments or discussion from the board on this?
Well, I had a real helpful discussion with an administrator earlier today where we were just reviewing the history of the bond package and the mission of the facility study committee that went through a deep dive of the district, top to bottom, end to end, was to accommodate future, existing and future growth. All of these things are great. I would love to see us do all of these things. I think they're all fabulous presentations, but at the time when that package was created, we did not have enough space for the kids that we had and the kids we had coming. So some of these capital improvements like roads and playgrounds and things like that, incredibly important, but that committee was tasked to prioritize things, correct me if I'm wrong, but to make extra room. And as you've said a couple of times, Dr. Kazanis, the locker room project was just as much of a priority 3 years ago as everything else. But we only had so many funds that we could put towards it. And it was a tough decision. At the time, I felt like a parent being told, I've got to cut my baby's arms and legs off to fit the cradle. And Brad has been very, very gracious and very patient, but we've been saying for a long time, we know your athletes need space as much as everybody else needs space, but at that time, it was a $12 million addition. We didn't have it then, we haven't had it yet, we don't have it now. So I'm not committed to a decision tonight, obviously, since we're not making one. I think Ms. Vick made some great points. I just wanted to offer that historical perspective.
Can I ask a question real quick? On the signage question, you said Midway Middle School, but what you're looking at, I'm guessing Hewitt, the digital sign at Hewitt, is that already a Daktronics sign, or is it just one that we don't feel needs replacing?
No, it's not. It would be awesome if we could have everything on this.
But it's digital already, so that's why it's not included. Okay. And Spiegelville as well, are they?
It does not.
Okay.
How old is the one on Mars?
It was from the 2013 bond, so it's almost a decade.
What's the expected lifespan?
I would have to ask somebody who knows more than I do, but it's gonna be a little more than a computer or a TV, because you can replace certain equipment, you don't have to replace the whole thing. But I will also say we went with a much more affordable hardware provider before, and so we also get what we pay for. And there's also been a lot of conflicts between the local sign installer and the hardware company pointing fingers at each other of where the problems lie. So the installer says it's the hardware's fault, and then the hardware says it is not a warranty issue, it's the installer's fault.
So if we were to do this, is that the same system would be on every campus?
If we did this, we would use Daktronics to both install their own equipment and then they contract for it. So whether it's the installer's
It's,
that
okay,
provide all places.
thank you.
And so that is why that says replace it with Daktronics, as opposed to, we could spend less money just repairing the current equipment on the former YP equipment.
Okay.
I'll add too, just for transparency, so you guys are aware, I'd had a parent back in October ask me, and I forwarded the question on to Dr. Kazanis and to Buddy, Mr. Freeman, about lighting behind, sort of between the stadium and the high school, back along Old Hewitt. Lots of times band kids, cheerleaders, walking through there, after a game. It's just a concern they've had as an ongoing, and so they had given me some ballpark cost on that, which was 30 to 45,000 probably to do that lighting. I don't know if that's something we want to throw in here or not, but I wanted to at least let y'all know that I had that conversation and get that out there, so.
Sure, I'm glad you brought that one
Yeah,
up too.
just as another thing maybe.
And we didn't price it, and it's not on the list, but of
Yeah.
course, some of the areas of the district are owned by the district when I'm referring to as roads, and so Old Hewitt Drive is the district's, that in front of the high school. Not what Big Creek Construction is doing in Mars Drive. They're doing a great job with that. Finally, through the city, that's happening. But turning into the high school, that Old Hewitt, all the way down to the baseball, softball fields, and eventually to the soccer field, is the district. And so at some point, the district has to consider that road. Road
In the
improvements.
main drive at the high school is in
And the
bad
main
shape.
drive at the high
Yeah,
school through
it's potholed
is,
up.
so I'm just saying, you always have, and I'm not minimizing what Mr. Witt's exactly right, minimizing that, I'm just saying there's
Maintenance.
lighting needs in the district, plus there will continue to be paving and parking lot type of issues that either for this excess funds or future bond projects.
And
too.
roofing and HVAC
Yes.
and,
But we did a lot of those in
yes,
this.
yes.
And I didn't even mention those, you're right, but we did our due diligence on our roofing and HVACs with this bond.
So George, what about additional cash in INS? That can only go towards.
debt
To debt.
payments.
You can't take that out and apply it to a capital
Nope.
project.
The excess funds would have been used in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Brooks, of course, to help us manage our tax rate with INS, as well as being able then to use sometimes those dollars for prepayment of bonds or help us when we're managing the tax rate over the lifespan of a bond, 20 years, and it helps keep it balanced so that we don't ever have to raise the tax rate with INS.
Unfortunately, the state doesn't let us save up money and then go spend it.
Nope. Not
They
in-
force us to go take out a bond.
Yes. All you can do is, as I said, balance out your tax rate over a period of time or pay the bond off earlier.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
Other comments, questions from the board?
I have one more.
Yes, sir.
If it's- I just wanted, I know the auditor's gone, but just take a look, if you don't mind, because all of you have the book in front of you, that look what he just passed out, just as a reminder, again, because I'm gonna hit this home, and the last thing that I do is, this is bond dollars, and you do have a general fund amount, but if you look at page 5 of the financial highlights, that's what you go to with an audit. Page 5, if you look at the top 4 bullets, you'll notice the 4th bullet. One of the numbers or the phrases you always hear about in school districts is your fund balance. It's your savings account, it's your excess. It's the rainy day fund and the state legislature calls it, so it's ours. So if you look at that, I don't want to say it's deceiving, but it does say 30% of the general fund we have in fund balance, roughly $23.4 million. But if you'll flip over to page 13 of this book, I just want to bring it to your attention. If you look under column 10, the general fund at the bottom, you'll see where we have total fund balances of this is the general fund of $24,109,488. But you'll also notice though that there is a line item assigned for next year's budget, which means the current budget we're in. This is something new auditors hadn't done before, is they looked at the budget that you approved for the 22-23 school year, and that budget deficit is right there. So it's not necessarily back to the bullet point 4 that you have 30% to spend, because you have to be very careful with that, because we're monitoring. That's why Mr. Brooks went through the books to show you, yes, ADA, average daily attendance is up, WADA is up, the weighted average daily, you're going to be getting budget projections by February. We always wait till about February, March to begin showing you how we're doing on the budget. Does that make sense? So, you'll also notice though, we do have capital expenditures there of 350, that's called the, remember, in the 400,000 for construction are, committed fund balance amounts. And so we always commit those. I know January, Mr. Brooks will come to you to look at those commitment amounts. You could do things like that. You could say committed amount, and it could go to signage, as you said. It could go to a plan of upgrading playgrounds. You could do that under the committed fund balances as well. That's a possibility. Just not all at once, like this particular, in your board packet here, showing you that we showed you having them all done at the same time, the 1.7, 1.8 million dollars. Okay? Does that make sense? So it's really the number left is that almost $20 million amount, 19.7. So that's the what's really left unassigned fund balance of the district. Okay?
So from a process standpoint, Mr. Board President, what, obviously there's no action to take tonight, but if there were to be action to take, what, is it something where we would, the administration would bring a recommendation to us, or would we form some committee of three of us and write, I mean, how would we do that?
The board, I mean, I think the board could ask the administration for a recommendation.
Or for pricing or something on certain things, yeah.
Ask for pricing, absolutely, but ultimately, it's the board's decision.
So we would just put it on an agenda in the future for action for unused bond funds, and then we would decide and make a motion and do whatever.
Yeah, I like how Ms. Vick worded hers. It would be, I think, collaborative. I wouldn't want to say that would be necessarily one administration recommendation.
Okay, that's
at
fair.
all. It would be collaborative work. It might be better in a workshop setting instead of a regular meeting, maybe, but otherwise, but looking through those and being able to see what projections are and add them up and see, how close you get to what you have in excess.
Okay.
Grants. So things like playgrounds, I mean, are there state, federal grant opportunities out there that we could pursue?
Not that I'm aware of.
And then,
sometimes you may, if you're in collaboration with your city. We did explore with the city of Woodway at Woodway Elementary, but that was not able to be pursued for whatever reason, in terms of qualifying for it.
and.
Because that's shared land, or not land, but shared with the city, the park.
Yeah, the original one. Opportunities to monetize anything, especially signage? I mean, are there, just like we do with the stadium, I mean.
So which project? What are you talking about, playground?
Signage.
Or signage?
Signage,
Oh,
no.
the signages.
Yeah, we sure sell rights to the playgrounds
Oh,
too,
oh.
I mean, sure. Sure,
Yeah,
Pete Russick Playground would be great.
And I was thinking Dallas Cowboys.
Each city has its own rules, not all the cities will let us sell advertising, but some of it we can. And we can thank sponsors, even if we can't sell ads.
Right. Well, that would be another thought, is there an opportunity to partner with the Education Foundation to go raise those funds with some kind of value add to our sponsors?
Everything's a possibility.
Okay.
I don't say no to it, no.
And that may be ideas some of our guests may be bringing, but my takeaway is there are lots of different wallets we can consider looking at beyond excess funds. That's right now the most accessible, biggest pot of money we have in front of us, but it's not the only option.
Okay, sorry.
I only have two comments. One, I really like what Ms. Vick said. She and I kind of are in agreement on that, is the way she lines stuff out. I would be on board with that in theory. Second comment would be, I like the idea of the playground, and I would love to take credit for this, but a community member is the one that told me this. But if we are able to use some of the excess bond funds for the playgrounds, then that would mean every campus at Midway got some benefit of the bond. Because right now, certain campuses have not had benefit, but high school, middle school, River Valley, Chapel Park, Park Hill, they all have had some benefit of the bond. But if we use some of this excess bond funds for the playgrounds that need it, all 11 campuses will have had some money. So I thought that was a really interesting point.
That's
So
a good point.
just throw that out there.
I like that.
Anybody else?
I do think it's interesting, Dr. K, you mentioned that the school, the locker room facilities at the high school were built sort of with the expectation of a campus of about 1,800 students. I know that maybe conversations down the road about how many people are really in that building, say 6 or 8 years from now. So depending on how many high schools we have in this district. So I think that's maybe something for us to consider as we weigh this too. Maybe not, but maybe something to consider.
Well, I hate to give too much credit to the guy that's retiring, but I don't think that a workshop is a bad idea. Once we are closer to more definitive numbers, to have a focused discussion on all these matters. So, yep.
We were able to get to 148 million with a lot of discussion, so.
Yeah, but a bunch of that took place at regular board meetings, Pam, as you recall. Some long board meetings.
Yes, it did.
Anybody else? Are we ready for public comment?
Let's hear it.
All right, public comment. If I don't get your name right, it's because some of you write almost as poorly as I do. So bear with me. Yeah, we're going to get the timer up. Yeah, I was going to give them a minute. There we go. We're getting there. First, and I'm just going to go in the order that folks signed up. So, Wendy Williams.
Got the luck of the draw, Ms. Williams.
Well, her name was at the top. She knew that.
Usually SW people are always at the end.
That's right, that's right.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you for being patient and waiting for us.
Thank you, members of the board, for listening to everything we have to say. I'm a parent of a second grade student who I am absolutely 100% positive that he's in the right place, because last year after Christmas break, he went skipping into school. And I'm not sure that many kids do that. So I just appreciate everything that Councilman does for us. I want to open up by thanking all of you guys for your dedication. Dr. Gazanis made a good point earlier that you guys are really always good stewards of our tax dollars. Some people complain about our tax rates. I don't, because I've worked in the district. I see it in action. I've seen it in action in the classrooms. And so I just appreciate that. So thank you. Let's see. It is because of what you have done and such a wonderful job in partnering with the community and seeking out feedback that I feel comfortable to come and speak tonight. Dr. Glazen asked me to do that, and I was like, oh, I think he has a lot of trust in me, and I'm going to say the right thing, so hopefully I do. And in the spirit of giving and caring and sharing, we are in that season of giving. Hopefully you decide to give to some of us. And as a parent who's been keeping up with the bond-funded projects across Midway, again, thank you for your time and the energy that you put into all of the projects that we have. My family and I are committed to Councilman Creek Elementary and making it the best experience for all students who attend it. Over the years, there are some areas that I've noticed that have needed to be improved. First is the need for covered walkways. I've gotten bored on going into the school, making sure that my child is dry, and having to go back and change and go to work at the same time. So I do see that covered walkways is a huge need at our school. Let's see. Also, the second issue is the need for playground structures to be upgraded. I appreciate Ms. Vick's response to that also being noted as well. Our campus is a Title I campus, and making sure that we have equitable facilities across our campus is a huge need for us, and it's something that we've noticed. And then finally, I'm going to advocate for digital signage for our campus. Being located off Hewitt Drive, our campus has the opportunity to reach a larger audience and share upcoming events with the community by utilizing a digital sign along Hewitt Drive. I've seen that Chapel Park is able to do, and I believe that our campus would benefit greatly from it, and I like your idea of being able to profit from that as well, to be able to care for some of that. So we have an incredible opportunity to make such needed improvements, and I want to make sure that I share my input as a parent and community member. Thank you for all of your tireless work and your dedication to the district, and your willingness to allow parents like me to come and speak.
Ms. Williams. Next on the list is Jody Kopp, C-O-P-P, I think. I thought it might have been Cap, but I looked at the O in Jody and thought, yeah, I think that's right.
Yes, sir.
Just get your batteries.
I'm gonna stick to this because, I had it timed out for 3 minutes exactly, so.
Hold on a second, she's gonna get you.
There you go.
She's getting your,
You got a second to warm up.
That's what I was about to say something. I got a text that said, I can't hear.
I would like to comment though, our last speaker, talking about our tax rate. We traditionally had one of the lowest tax rates in McLennan County of all the school districts, so.
As opposed to people thinking ours is always one of the highest.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're traditionally one of the lowest ones.
Absolutely.
after this, we're gonna do a school finance workshop,
Yeah.
so please stick around.
We don't like killing.
That's almost as exciting as the annual audit report.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Well, howdy, my name is Jody Kopp, and I'm the proud father of 2 amazing boys that use wheelchairs for their mobility. Callan is a freshman at Midway High School, and Lawson is a 5th grader at Hewitt Elementary. Our family has been a part of the Midway system for 11 years, as Callan began school at age 3 due to their rare mitochondrial medical condition. A condition so rare there are roughly 20 known cases in the world, and Callan and Lawson are the 2 oldest. My wife Melissa and I have been trailblazing and advocating for their care since birth. Sadly, I'm not here for my boys this evening. Their time for accessible playgrounds at Midway ISD campuses has come and gone. I'm here to be a voice for future wheelchair users coming behind our boys that will hopefully have an opportunity to interact and play with their peers, rather than having to sit on the sidelines. Our boys have attended Woodway and Hewitt Elementaries. Through the years, we have had countless teachers apologize to us for not being able to include the boys more. That's not saying they didn't include the boys, and we absolutely applaud their efforts. It just wasn't as easy due to the materials used on these playgrounds. Callan often came home with splinters in his hands and knees from the wood chips used at Woodway Elementary. Due to his high pain tolerance, we sometimes didn't see them for days until they would blister. While at Hewitt Elementary, he would constantly get stuck in the pea gravel and be unable to move his wheelchair without assistance, completely hindering his ability to play with his friends and peers. Lawson faces this challenge now at Hewitt Elementary as he was moved to the Hewitt campus to have access to the accessible playground for his final year in elementary school. So far, he has tipped his wheelchair over 3 times while just trying to be a kid and play zombies with his friends. My wife was a part of the committee that worked hard to obtain the Hewitt playground, but her voice was diminished by those worried typical children wouldn't have anything to do on the playground for a kid in a wheelchair. If you haven't seen the playground in person, I implore you to go see the 2-foot drop-offs and narrow sidewalks, the areas where some of the differing materials meet and the obstacles this creates, or the fact a wheelchair user is only able to access one part of the ramp. But please understand, I'm not here to overly criticize what has been done because the playground is certainly more accessible than the previous one. But immediate safety improvements could be fixed now in certain areas with the excess bond funds. We love the ADA, but the ADA is a minimum, and some of the materials currently being used are difficult for wheelchair users, such as wood chips and pea gravel, even though these materials are approved by the ADA. I'm aware the other materials, such as poured in place, cost more, but they also tend to last longer and are better for everyone. We've been told for years that a plan was in the works to build truly accessible and inclusive playgrounds so children of all abilities can play together, which helps build lasting friendships. Opportunities for funds for playgrounds are not easy to come by, and this seems to be the perfect time to use the excess bond funds for this purpose. In a very real way, some of the best education begins on the playground. I have failed my boys by not having a voice early enough, so I'm here tonight to be a voice for those coming behind us. While the numbers of wheelchair users seem tiny in comparison to the general population, they are indeed here and just want to be kids. I appreciate y'all's time, and I love to hear inclusive whenever Ms. Vick said that, and hearing from some of y'all. Thank you very much, because it's needed for all these kids. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, sir.
All right, next on the list, Trudy Alcorn.
Again, I'm going to follow it too because I timed it out. Are you ready? Closer. Dr. Kazanitz, President Rusick, and distinguished members of the board. My name is Trudy Alcorn. I'm the parent of a 4th grade student at Spiegelville Elementary. I also have a junior at the high school and a college freshman who graduated from Midway. I would like to begin by thanking all of you for your service to our community and, more importantly, to our students. Your leadership and dedication to our district has made the Midway the highly respected institution it is today. When we moved to Central Texas 5 years ago, choosing a school district was our first priority. Although there are many excellent districts in the area, my husband and I were very impressed with the Midway system and all the amazing opportunities it has to offer. Even in our short time here, we have seen Midway constantly grow and improve, largely due to the generous bond election in 2019. I'm here this evening to speak towards the use of those remaining funds. Along with you, I am passionate about providing the best educational experience possible for my children and all the students within this district. With that being said, I am very active on both campuses, volunteering through the PTA. I have seen firsthand all the improvements made to the high school and the direct benefit to the students. I now respectfully ask that you consider allotting much-needed funds to the improvement of several of the elementary campuses, specifically outdoor areas and playgrounds. Spiegelville is a small, tight-knit community, but unfortunately is one of the older facilities in the district and would greatly benefit from some much-needed upgrades. I am very proud of the impressive new facilities that Midway has recently built or remodeled, but I too feel there's an equity issue among our campuses. The playground area at Spiegelville is extremely outdated and, frankly, in my opinion, a safety concern. In its current state, the area is not accessible to students with mobility issues. Children literally have to be carried to the playground by an adult. After being made aware of an audit by the Lee Park and Play, it shows many areas in which the playground equipment is outdated and in dire need of upgrade or repair. As with Castleman, another outdoor improvement that would be highly beneficial to our students would be a covered walkway. I have dropped my son off many times in bad weather and watched the staff do their best, keeping the kids dry with umbrellas, but that's just not a productive way to start your day. The final item I'd like to bring to your attention are several other exterior issues at Spiegelville that have not been addressed. We have areas where bricks are missing from the building and laying on the ground. Several spots with exposed irrigation lines and large sinkholes in areas that are easily accessible to children. All of these items are a safety concern to both children and adults alike. Now that we have the funds available, I again respectfully ask that you consider allocating monies to Spiegelville and the other elementaries that are in need. I understand we are small and off the beaten path. However, it saddens me to see Spiegelville could truly benefit from improvements while other campuses are featured in news articles and social media. I truly appreciate this board and your tireless dedication to our schools, and I thank you for your time and attention tonight addressing these community issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alford.
And we would love to address signs too.
All right, Mary Zane or Jane? Zane. I had it right the first time, Nelson.
It's been Jane Zane all my life, so either one. Okay, ready? Good evening. My name is Mary Zane Nelson. I'm the parent of a second grader and a pre-K student in Castleman Creek Elementary. I first want to express my gratitude for your leadership in this district and your dedication to our students in this community. I'm a new parent in the district. However, I have a spouse who works in the district for over a year now. And one of the things I appreciate most about this district is the way that you all seek our input and you want to hear from us. That is much appreciated and it is powerful. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and I have a background of many years in school social work, and so I just wanted to share my input from that lens. One of the things I'm most passionate about is ensuring all students have access to the things they need to be successful. And one of the things that research has pointed to time and time again is the vast importance of that recess and outdoor time have in improving students' social and emotional capacities, as well as their readiness to learn. Multiple studies have pointed to how recess improves children's attention to academic tasks, but more importantly, recess is linked to improved classroom behavior and improved teacher morale in that case. Research demonstrates that fidgeting and misconduct increases the longer a child goes without recess. And following recess, there's a drastic decrease in these same behaviors. One of my boys is a classic example of one who desperately needs recess to be successful in school. Recess and time on the playground not only allow him to get the wiggles out, but also allow him to get his sensory needs met. I can visibly see the calming effect that outdoor play has on him, and I am certain his teacher would say the same. I always say a big prayer when it's a rainy day for her. Additionally, recess facilitates children's social development and social competence. Recess provides students with an avenue to practice social skills, conflict resolution, peer-to-peer negotiations, and more. These same skills we utilize daily got their start on the playground. I could spend all night talking to you about the vast importance of recess and outdoor play, but the final point I want to make is one about school pride. I'm proud to send my children to Castleman Creek. We chose that school specifically, and I want their experience to be equitable to those of other campuses. Our current reality is that with our playgrounds, they're not up to standard. They are constantly needing to be repaired. They aren't accessible to all of the students at Castleman Creek right now, and they're too small for the size of our population. I want to strongly encourage the board to allocate some of the remaining bond funds to improving the playgrounds at Castleman and the others in the district that are also in need of repair. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Crystal Lowry.
Dr. Kazanis, President Russick, and distinguished members of the board, thank you for having us tonight and for considering our feedback. I know that you guys are faced with some really difficult decisions. Like many of you have said, all of these projects are worthy, and I know we'd all like to do them all. And so I'm going to kind of piggyback on what many people have shared already tonight, but my name's Crystal Lowry, and my daughter is a third grader at South Bosque Elementary School. And I've had the privilege of serving on our PTA board for the last 4 years. I'm here tonight on behalf of our campus's families to ask you to consider allocating a portion of the excess bond funds to the update and maintenance of the outdoor equipment on our older elementary campuses, such as South Bosque. The new schools and renovations within the district have been incredible, and my hope is that with just a fraction of the remaining funds available, we can make necessary improvements to the rest of our elementary campuses and allow them to also be touched by the 2020 bond election. South Bosque opened in 1990, and our school marquee is original to the building. Its foundation was repaired with PTA funds in 2007, but it again is leaning considerably and has not only become an eyesore, but is also a bit of a safety hazard at this point. As new digital signs have been installed across the district, we've realized the impact of our campus not having such a sign and the capabilities that come with that. In this age, providing digital information has become the expectation, and such a sign would allow improved engagement with not only our families, but the greater community, and would also allow for information distribution, the highlighting of student and staff achievements, and like we've talked about some tonight, the opportunity to further fundraise and recognize our sponsors and communicate the use of donated funds at both the campus and district level. On the opposite side of our school is our playground, and we're fortunate also to have an adaptive playground, but its functionality has really deteriorated in recent years, although our special needs population has increased considerably. The playground equipment and the ground surface needs updating at our campus. We're fortunate to have very involved and generous families at South Bosque, but the $54,000 budget for the digital sign and the $330,000 proposal for the updated playground falls well outside of our PTA fundraising capabilities, and we have tried. Maintenance of outdoor spaces to create equity among the campuses across the district seems more appropriately addressed by district funding. I know that creating such equity is a priority for our district, and allocating, again, just a fraction of the excess funds would allow greater consistency across Midway. With 4,000 elementary students, most of whom spend at least 6 years on their home elementary campus, providing functional outdoor spaces is a necessity and thus should be a priority for our district at this time. So thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Becky Cram.
A little bit taller. Good evening, Dr. Kazanis, President Russick, and distinguished members of our board. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. My name is Becky Cram, and I have 2 students at South Bosque Elementary in 3rd grade and kindergarten, 2 little girls. I am also an active member of the PTA board and a member of the Midway Education Foundation board. I'm here to you tonight to talk to you a little bit about specifically South Bosque, a need that we have. I know we've touched on it, as we said already, a little bit this evening, different needs that we have, and you guys have huge decisions to make on how you want to allocate those, but specifically I'd like to talk to you about the need for digital signage. I know Crystal has already touched a little bit about our current sign, and there are several schools in the district that already have digital signage in place, I believe 6 of the 11, and we are asking that you consider that for South Bosque of allocating a little bit of those funds towards our school. As you know, also, South Bosque is actually the only facility right now that has a one-sided sign. Even the other schools that are looking for digital signs to upgrade, they all have two-sided signs, and ours is one that only has one side. And why else do we want to have a new digital sign? We want to promote and enhance ourselves within the community. This would give us the opportunity, as you know, with COVID and with all the different restrictions we have in place, not many people can enter schools as much as they used to, as frequently as they used to. This would allow us to showcase our staff more in photos, images, flyers, things of that nature, as well as our students that are approved, of course, to be shown. Additionally, we want to engage with our parents and families more. I know many of you have seen the very long lines that can form in front of this building going into South Bosque and all the way up to the school. And it would allow us opportunity to promote different events coming up, send out reminders, information, and we could do it real time digitally. We don't have to wait. As of right now, we create flyers, we print them, and we distribute them. So it actually would also give us more funding within our PTA to use for other things versus printing those flyers. And our parents use a significant amount of time to print those in color, and you can't see those when you print them because PTA doesn't have the funds to print those in color. This would allow us the chance to showcase those. Additionally, we could use it to fundraise for events. As Tracy touched on earlier, we could use it to recruit to get fundraising for sponsors, and we could also use it to thank our sponsors. And finally, equality between the campuses. As we said, there are 11 campuses, 6 of them have this digital signage already, and we would like to be considered to have that as well. We pride ourselves within the district of all of our schools being equal, and I know during the rezoning efforts that we really push that all of our schools are the same. They're the best schools. You can't go wrong at any schools that you are at, so I would like the opportunity to see equal among all the schools with the digital signage as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And your leadership.
Thank you very much. And Jennifer Getterman.
Dr. Kasanis, President Russick, and distinguished members of the board, I want to thank you for your service and your time to listen to us tonight. My name is Jennifer Getterman. I'm the parent of 3 students at South Bosque Elementary School. I also serve on the Education Foundation and on the PTA and serve as a substitute teacher for Midway ISD. I want to talk to you tonight about our playground at South Bosque. We currently have 2 playgrounds, a large playground and an adaptive playground, as well as a track that are utilized by every single student on our campus, pre-K3 to 5th grade. The track was funded by the PTA in the early 2000s. The swing structure on the large playground is original to the campus from 1990. In the early 2000s, a zip line was added to the playground. In 2003, the adaptive playground and the surface was installed. The surface is currently the original surface from 2003. In 2018, the PTA funded the canopy over the large playground. And just last year, the Education Foundation funded the musical instruments on our adaptive playground to give our wheelchair-bound students a spot that they can enjoy. There are safety concerns on our adaptive playground that need addressing. The surface on the adaptive playground is uneven and it's coming up, which makes it difficult for our 4 wheelchair-bound students to enjoy. The swings can't be used as intended because they are missing safety straps and harnesses to secure those students. And the wheelchair accessible swing is missing chains and clasps to secure and anchor the wheelchairs. We need updates to make our playgrounds comparable to the others in the districts. The precedent that the PTA fundraising will maintain and repair our track and playgrounds has led to years of delayed repairs and created a safety risk for all our students. The replacement of our track exceeds our allotted budget to the point where additional fundraising beyond what we currently raise is needed over several years. Our current bid to replace our track is $60,000. Our PTA fundraising supports projects already in place, and our goal is to continue to fund those projects instead of taking them away to fund and maintain our playgrounds and tracks. Our donors also feel that the PTA funding should be used for student experiences and teacher support rather than maintaining our playgrounds. Every PTA is limited to the opportunities for fundraising, with some communities having significantly more limitations. The National PTA's website states that PTAs frequently turn over their funds to school administration, such basics as books, equipment, and maintenance, not to mention extras such as playground equipment and vending machines. The undue burden on PTAs and communities to fund and maintain something that we feel is a district concern is not feasible. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Ashley Becknald. It was a guess. It was a guess.
I was gonna let you have that productive struggle, yeah.
Good evening, Dr. Kazanis and President Russick and members of the board. My name is Ashley Becknald. I am the parent of a pre-kindergarten and kindergarten student at Castleman Creek Elementary, as well as a sixth grader at Midway Middle School. I want to first start by opening and thanking you for your dedication to Midway ISD. We know the past few years have brought a lot of challenges and hardships, as well as changes to Midway, but your steadfast leadership, your commitment to our students and staff, your compassion, as well as other things, have led us through it. Across the country, we know that school boards are divided on lots of issues. Luckily, we have you and your unity, your willingness to collaborate, and we thank you for the stability that you bring to our district. I'm here tonight to provide community input regarding the remaining funds from the 2020 bond election. As a parent and community member, one of the things I want to always make sure we are considering, of course, is equity, as you've heard, across the district. The bond election has made incredible improvements, like Dr. Kazanis was speaking of earlier. We have our new elementary schools, our new renovations of Midway Middle School, the CTE wing at the high school, and additional projects across the district. These changes continue to elevate our district and make us one of the best public school districts in the state of Texas. One area I believe needs to be considered is the improvement of the elementary campus playgrounds across the district, but specifically at Castleman Creek Elementary. Built in 2009, Castleman Creek is a beautiful campus, but one thing that has always been lacking is a quality playground that's built to accommodate the size of our population and its varying needs. Currently, the majority of our students will play in the bus circle or even in the field by the playgrounds instead of on the playground. Following the completion of Chapel Park and Park Hill, I've been made aware of an audit conducted by the Lee Park and Play, as you were speaking of earlier. And while this audit was not a pass or fail audit, it was brought to our attention that there were lots of repairs that need to be made. I'm talking with Dr. Glazman. I'm on the PTA board as well. I know that there have been multiple work orders put in for our playground to tighten bolts or even replace bolts, stakes coming out of the ground. So multiple structures that have been needing quite some improvement. In my professional life, I'm an early childhood specialist. I'm a certified teacher, early childhood through 4th grade. And I work at the Region 12 Service Center. I have a master's degree in educational administration. And my career presses me to advocate for equity in all instructional materials for students. And here I am advocating for equitable access on our playgrounds. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the board?
Hey, buddy, would all these be like summertime or be ready by next fall, the like playground projects, if we appropriate the money for them?
No, some of them would get started on down, rather than may have to close part of the playgrounds down for a short amount of time, but we would not have to wait until summer. If we waited until summer, it's probably hard to get it all done, because most schools want to do that stuff in the summer. So if we could very well get started, the better it would be.
Is that something that's been talked about at the community level, and we can talk about it in workshop time? What the kids would do while sections of the playground were under construction?
Well, we know Castleman Creek will play in the bus circle.
Yeah.
Well, like at Spring Valley, they have two playgrounds.
Uh-huh.
One playground is fairly new, and the other playground is really old. So you could put them on one while you work on the other, or use something like that. You know, at Woodway, they have a hall that they possibly could use while they're working on the playground. It's just that each one would be case by case. Spiegelville, there's two playgrounds. So you just have to do where you could.
Best you can.
What's happened over time is the playgrounds have been funded basically by PTAs.
Right.
And so without district standards of equipment, a lot of the equipment that was bought, they bought just what they could afford.
Sure.
And the longevity of that cheaper equipment is just not there when you set the standards higher and buy good equipment.
Do we know the length of a construction time, depending on what needs to be done? Is it several weeks, several months?
I think Sean said that maybe 3 or 4 months he could get all this done. A lot of the equipment has to be ordered.
Right.
There's a delay right now.
Right.
Some of it's 2 or 3 months out. You know, we still have the spinners in for Chapel Park.
Right.
Because of the delay, there was a delay in getting those like 2 or 3 months. So that's another problem if you wait till summer.
Sure.
Ordering equipment is going to take a while.
So
Go ahead.
the numbers that were on our packet for each school, does that include things like surfacing or, you know, drainage issues or anything else? Or is it just, so it sort of covers everything? And are we met with each school to make sure we're confident? Because I know some of the
We haven't
emails.
done that yet. We just,
Okay.
Mary Lou and I went around to every elementary with Sean, Miranda.
Okay, so this is one vendor's, here's what we said.
His ideas were.
Okay. So it's close, in other words.
Yes, but we need input from.
Okay, that's fair.
One thing I know about our principals and teachers is that y'all are innovative and fluid and know how to pivot. But I would charge our principals and maybe PTA boards to start thinking creatively about where we would put the kids while these things were under construction, so they can get their wiggles out. I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is I'm incredibly moved by what Mr. Green said, that this will, working on these playgrounds will make sure that every campus in our district has benefited from the bond project. You know, I think, yeah, you all make a really strong case. Thank you for coming, by the way, all of you.
Yes, appreciate it.
Anybody else?
I'm just thankful we're in a sweet spot where we're big enough where we can do projects on this scale, but small enough that we can keep our library contents consistent, that we can be the same across the district. We've talked to a lot of folks from bigger school districts, but it's just not feasible. And so, like where we are.
Indeed, indeed. On behalf of the board, for everybody that stayed and wanted to speak, thank you. It's incredibly important and incredibly powerful to have the opportunity to hear from members from the community. And we appreciate folks staying so late to do that. So, thank you. And you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Or not. I was like, I know that. Yeah. Right, exactly. All right, you too, take care.
Before you start this.
Make the Spiegelville equipment adaptable to the new campus one day on Spiegelville. Take it out, start putting it on wheels. Yeah. So we could move it over to Spiegelville
Two. Okay, consideration items, the consent agenda. We have minutes from a number of our meetings, including special called meetings. We have our board policy EIE, some early graduation requests, our new club that was presented last month, our calendar, our audit, we've already talked about, the one budget amendment, our grants that Susie had the pleasure to present, glad she was here to do that, approving construction delivery methods, and then the resolution regarding the exchange of real property. Any board member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda?
I'd like to remove number 11.
We will pull number 11.
And number 7, please.
And number 7. Anybody else? If not, do we have a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 6, 8, 9, 10, and 12?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Alford,
Second.
second by Mr. Witt. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. MISD calendar. Colin.
I'm looking at it here to make sure we got the date for Good Friday corrected in that we had discussed a couple of meetings ago, is that right?
Yes, it's highlighted on the 29th.
So it's March 29th then, that's what that is. Okay, and then we left the Monday in April, so there's at least a day break in April, right? I see that. Okay. That's all. That's all my question was, just making sure.
Very good. Anybody else on 7? If not, do we have a motion to approve consent agenda item 7?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Witt,
Second.
second by Mr. Tullis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Mr. Tullis.
Yeah, on number 11, what projects are we talking about going with CSP?
That would be none at this point.
That would be none. So it's not necessarily need to be approved. That was just in case the board approved tonight or wanted to approve something.
Okay. Because
It's not
just for
needed
future
tonight.
reference, a couple of things I heard talked about working directly with different vendors, whether it's on the signage or the playgrounds. You know, those obviously don't sound like CSPs. So anyway, that was my confusion.
Yeah. So sorry, it was just in case.
So do we need to approve it? Do we just drop it off the consent agenda?
My view was, and I was hopeful someone was going to pull it, because if nobody did, I was going to, because I'm with you. I think in light of everything, we don't need to take action on 11 tonight, is my view.
No, sir.
We will have plenty of opportunities going forward to, with the administration's input and recommendation, look at construction delivery methods for whatever the projects are. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
No objection?
No.
All right, then we will defer on 11, and we are otherwise then through with the consent agenda. We have one professional recommendation to approve. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong line. Thank you. Thank you. You are correct. I wouldn't hype enough on the page. So, on the addendum, do we have a motion to approve the professional recommendations as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Watts,
Second.
second by Mr. Alford. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. We don't need to go into closed session on any personnel matters from you. Right, okay.
Right answer.
Are we ready for closed session otherwise? Okay, so or do y'all want to take a short break first?
Try to take a quick little break.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess, then we'll come back.
Are we gonna go straight from break to closed session?
Well, we can go ahead and announce we're going into closed session now if y'all want to do that.
Yeah.
We're not going to do it in here, or are we?
We're going to the lobby.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, I thought we were coming back in here. Okay, so what we will do then is at 9:25 PM, we will go into closed session under Texas Government Code, Chapter 551.074 and 551.0821. All right, and we'll be across the hall. But everybody, take care of your personal needs before you go over there.
Well,
All right.
kind of jumped the gun there.
Thank you for the permission.
Yeah.
I wasn't permission, I was just